On December 19, 2023, the Colorado Supreme Court announced that former President Donald Trump is ineligible for the White House. This unprecedented event has caused waves in the US political landscape. In this video, we'll explore this development and what's ahead following the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling. Stay tuned. In a landmark decision, Colorado Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to appear on the state's presidential ballot in 2024. The court based its ruling on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which states, "No person shall hold any office under the United States who, having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort of the enemies thereof." However, this decision is currently on hold until January 4th, pending an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Trump's legal team has already filed an appeal, and the case is expected to be heard by the High Court in the coming months. Section 3 of 14th Amendment was passed after the Civil War to prevent former Confederate officials from holding public office. It has been invoked only rarely since then, and there is no clear consensus on how to interpret it. The Colorado Supreme Court decision has fueled speculation that similar challenges could be filed against Trump in other states. Legal challenges have already been filed in Michigan, Minnesota, and Oregon. If the U.S. Supreme Court affirms the Colorado Supreme Court's decision or declines to hear the case, it would pose a significant setback for Trump's aspirations in the 2024 presidential race. Additionally, it might establish a guiding principle for other states to disqualify candidates using Section 3 of 14th Amendment as a basis. However, if the U.S. Supreme Court overturns the Colorado Supreme Court decision, it would be a major victory for Trump. It would also weaken the argument that other states could disqualify Trump from their ballots. Currently, 6 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices were appointed by Republican presidents, with 3 selected by President Trump himself. While justices are expected to remain impartial, considering their background is relevant in their final decision-making. The Supreme Court could potentially use various arguments to overturn the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling. For instance, they might assert that the term insurrection lacks clarity and that the events of January 6 at the Capitol may not fit the definition. Even if deemed an insurrection, they could explore Trump's involvement, arguing that the situation doesn't meet the standard for disqualification under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Another aspect that Supreme Court might consider is whether this disqualification process applies to the presidency. As mentioned earlier, disqualifying a presidential candidate is an unprecedented event, and the Supreme Court could argue that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment may only apply to lower offices, not the presidency. Lastly, an important aspect concerns the impact of the Colorado Supreme Court's decision on election law. It sets a precedent for future cases and might open the door to increased judiciary involvement in the upcoming elections. While it may appear evident that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was created, for instance, to prevent individuals like Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy, from assuming the U.S. presidency, the Supreme Court could employ these mentioned arguments or similar ones depending on the specific case details to overturn the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to disqualify President Trump from the 2024 election. The political outcomes of this case are also significant. In the past, when Trump dealt with legal problems, his supporters stood by him even more. They increased donations to his campaign and took part more actively in his rallies. The situation is a bit complex for other Republican candidates. Currently, Trump is leading the Republican primaries by approximately 50% in the polls. Considering the present circumstances, if Trump gets disqualified from running in a few states and drops out of the election, it might be the only chance for these candidates to become the final nominee for their party. However, they can't show their happiness openly because it might upset Trump's strong supporters who could potentially vote for them. Therefore, they might privately celebrate this event and hope that the Supreme Court won't reverse their decision. Publicly, they will criticize this decision and express worries about the impact on freedom of speech and American democracy. The disqualification of Trump from the Colorado presidential primary ballot is a complex and controversial issue with far-reaching implications. Everyone is waiting to see the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on this case, while it is more likely in favor of Trump. In this video, we've discussed the disqualification of Trump from presidential election in Colorado. If you found this content informative, please like it and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to share your thoughts, comments, and ideas for future topics in the comments section. Thank you for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.